following Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Shafi'i, can a person follow all of them in a sense that since all of them are derived from Quran and Sunnah, they're correct?
Yeah.
If I want to follow a particular thing with Imam Abu Hanifa, then Imam Shafi'i, because in my view, I'm not wrong, because they're all correct, they all come from Quran and Sunnah.
Yeah, no. It's these were imams, they were mujtahideen, right? And if somebody wants to follow Abu Hanifa, there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing, if somebody wants to follow Ahmad ibn Hanbal, there's nothing wrong with that, because at the end of the day, we're not mujtahids. We're not mujtahids, right? And so you have to follow somebody. But, there's also nothing wrong with not following a madhab, right? In fact, I'll tell you something, right? To follow a madhab, it means you have to be a student of knowledge, right? For me to follow Abu Hanifa's madhab on commercial transactions, it's not easy. For me to follow Abu Hanifa's fiqh on zakah, it's not easy, right? So actually what used to happen, Imam al-Shawkani talks about this very well in his Irshad al-Fuhul, which is in a brilliant book on usul al-fiqh. He says what actually used to happen at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and I think this is the best way, is that a person who wasn't a scholar, a sahabi that wasn't a scholar, comes to the Prophet after the Prophet ﷺ, comes to a sahabi. Let's say he comes to Zayd ibn Thabit. What's your opinion on X issue? Right? So Zayd ibn Thabit tells him. So he says, Jazakallahu khair, he goes and he implements it, right? Okay, now he's taken from Zayd ibn Thabit. Zayd ibn Thabit isn't going to say to him now, okay, now you've taken my opinion, right? Now you have to stick to all the rest of my opinions, right? Because I have a certain usul, right? And you can't go to anybody else, right? So what would happen is that next time that person has an issue, as Zayd ibn Thabit is just human, Abdullah ibn Abbas is next to him, or Abdullah ibn Zubayr, or Umar ibn Khattab. He asks Umar ibn Khattab, right? What about this issue? Then he tells him, and then he follows him. So the whole thing about following a school of thought, first I think it's not as easy as just asking scholars that you trust, as and when, whether they follow a madhab or not. In fact, Ibn Abidin, who's one of the great later scholars of the Hanafi madhab, he said, Al-'ami la madhhab lahu, that general people, lay people don't have a madhab. This is the Hanafi, those people who impose on people to have a madhab, which are the later Hanafis, the later Hanafis, their own primary source reference is Ibn Abidin through his Hashiyah. He himself says, Al-'ami la madhhab lahu. The general people don't have a madhab, So the whole issue of having a madhab, you can if you want to, right? I'm saying it's okay. This is, because you're not doing ijtihad. But in reality, what you're going to be doing is probably, unless you've grown up in an exclusively Hanafi society, which is fine, that's what you've learnt. But like me, I've been brought up in the UK. I didn't just have Hanafi people around me. I had, other people around me. And so I learned from here and here and here and here. And then as you progress, then you should be getting to a level where you're asking scholars, look, what's the most strong opinion here, right? And you should be then investigating yourself, right? As long as two valid scholars are saying, and you feel happier with this, follow that as well. So then try and go for the most authentic opinion as well. Try and train yourself for that, But then you have to start training yourself. It takes some years, but don't worry, anybody can get there if they have the effort and the sincerity. Yes, just wanted to come. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you like Imam Shafi'i had a better position on it, you could follow that position as opposed to him.
Yes, of course. And this is what Shawkani says. Shawkani says there's ijma' amongst the Salaf on this. He's saying ijma' amongst the companions on this. He's saying that nobody stopped anybody moving around. So there's ijma' actually, he says, on this issue. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. This is what normally people say, but, in reality, people who want to follow their desires, they just don't follow the Sharia at all, right? That's actually the truth, right? People like you and me, do we go around following every single weak opinion because we want to make Islam diluted? We don't. People like you, alhamdulillah, Allah knows best, love Allah, love His Rasul. So you don't want to mess around with the deen of Allah, right? That doesn't happen. And people don't do that. If people don't want to follow, if somebody wants to do wudu, right? Is wudu desire? Wudu is not desire, right? You have to, especially in the UK when it's cold and freezing, right? You have to, it's freezing sometimes, right? That's not desire, it's hard. It's hard to put your foot up and wash your feet, and it's not easy, right? So already it's not desire. So anything that's under wudu, even if it's something a bit easier in the Shafi'i madhab. For example, Imam Shafi'i says that if a woman touches you, your wudu is broken, right? You know that. You know that, right? The Shafi'i opinion. Right, so my teacher told me a story that one person went to Hajj and he said, I'm going to follow the Shafi'i opinion 100% everything, right? So he wore gloves, or how would he do? Yeah, he wore gloves. This must be after Ihram. He was doing Umrah perhaps, right? Wore gloves, right? Covered his full body, right? So because in the tawaf, you're touching, women are there, right? And there's push and shove, right? You can't get away from it, right? That's what's happening, right? So that's what he does, he covers up. And so a woman comes to him, right? Says, right, I understand what you're doing. You want to follow the Shafi'i madhab, don't you? She goes, okay then. And she touches him on the head, right? Right? So a very clever woman, right? So what he had to do, right? What he had to do is that he had to leave tawaf, go all the way to the place where you do wudu, right? And then he had to come back, right? So it didn't work, right? It didn't work. So if somebody thinks that the Shafi'i madhab is too difficult, again, even the scholars of usul fiqh allow to follow a weak opinion for rukhsa, for purposes of ease, for purposes of difficulty in your life. And there are many stories in the books of seer, in the books of biographies, where people would go to this scholar, then that scholar, then that scholar, then that scholar, trying to find an opinion that suits them, and then came to Abu Hanifa, and Abu Hanifa says, here's a way out for you. Somebody did talaq, said that if my wife is not more beautiful than the moon, then I do talaq of her. Right, and then there's stories like this, and then all the scholars saying you're divorced from your wife. And he goes, what I'm going to do, Then he goes to Abu Hanifa, don't worry, I'll sort it out for you. I can't remember the discussion exactly, but he goes, look, actually the moon isn't more beautiful than your wife, and all this kind of stuff, right? Because of this burst of poetry, whatever it was, right? And then he goes, so khalas, you're still married, something like that. So there's many examples like that. So people have. لا يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. Allah wants ease for you, doesn't want hardship for you. ما خير رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بين أمرين اثنين إلا أخذ أيسرهما. Never was the Prophet ﷺ given an option between two things, except that he always took the easiest one, right? Yeah, exactly. So anyway, if you're in the remit of the Sharia, never accuse anybody of following their desires, right? They are following the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Sharia of Allah has fusha. It is wide. Even though the hadith is weak, the scholars say it's good meaning. Ikhtilaf ummati rahma. The ikhtilaf of my ummah is a mercy. The difference of my ummah is a mercy. So, anyway, to move on, I was going to give I might do it next time. How long do I have, Dr. Rida?
I think we should just take a 5-minute break.
Okay.